Sarana saranai budun daka nivan daka pammage wahudaruvo ngapavo budun daka nivan daka
I seek your indulgence to begin with a long quote. Milan Kundera, who was a distinguished musician before he escaped the Soviet tanks when they rolled into his beloved Prague in the spring of 1967, to settle down in Paris and become Europe's most fashionable contemporary novelist, breaks into a long and slightly incongruous polemic on music in his infuriatingly brilliant novel, The Joke. I quote, "When you come face to face with the whole of our folk music culture, it's as if the dancer from the 1001 Nights was shedding veil after veil for you. Look, off comes the first veil. Its cloth is rough and patterned with trivialities. These are the songs of the past 50, 60, 70 years. They come to us from the West, from Bohemia's brass bands. Our children were taught to sing them by their teachers. Though slightly adapted to our rhythmic patterns, they are basically run-of-the-mill major-key West European folk music. Here comes the second veil. It is much more colorful. These are the songs of Hungarian origin. They came with the encroachment of the Magyar language. Gypsy groups spread them far and wide throughout the 19th century. Everyone knew them. Zardazzers and recruiting songs with a special syncopated rhythm. Under this veil there is yet another. Look, the songs of the native Slav population during the 17th and 18th centuries. The fourth veil is even more beautiful. The songs are even older. It goes as far back as the 14th century when the Wallachians made their way across the Carpathians from the east and southeast to the pastorlands of Slovakia. Their songs of shepherds and highwaymen are completely innocent of chords and harmony. They are purely melodic in conception, and the melodies, enhanced by the pipes and fifes that produce them, make full use of the ancient modal scales. Once this has fallen away, there is none left to take its place. Yet utterly naked, the dancer continues. These are the oldest songs of all, our own songs." End quote.
budundaka nivandaka pammage bakudaruvo indikatu aminilla sakinu badannavad ralamale
The story fits perfectly with the genealogy of our music, or for that matter, the music of any country. If we accept that, then we are with someone once said, music is history in sound.
දෙවි යනේ මට උණු වියෝයා පැලේ පැදුර ඔරු අරගෙන
පැදුර නැති කලට අඩ දබර බොහෝයා පැදුර දෝන් කෙනෙක් මගේ නෑ සියෝයා.
If you listen to our opening movement, you would have heard the various phases of our history and the layers each left behind. The drums perhaps hark back to a time before history, when we were closer both to God and to the devil. They are on a primordial scale with rhythmic structures and tones both dark and mysterious. Then comes the cleansing tide of Buddhism in the wake of Aryan settlements from the valleys of the Ganga and the Indus. A civilization blossoms in the north-central plains and from the vast paddy fields watered by the giant tanks of the Rajarata in the king's country. There echo the songs of harvesting. In strict obeisance to strictures of Theravada Buddhism, these simple songs do not stray beyond the third note. The chaste chanting of Pirit, the recitation of Buddhist scriptures is all what their ears are tuned to. And in that sacred chant, there is a strict code. Thou shalt not chant in a way that creates melody and rhythm, and therefore raga, which means desire. And so the Sinhala villager, content in his abode of the temple and the tank, was happy with the harvesting songs of a primary scale. They were less than songs, more verses recited in a slightly long drawn-out mode. By the 12th century AD, we were coming under the influence of South India, and it was an influence both political and cultural. The rich traditions of the Pallava and the Vijayanagara empires in the performing arts begin to seep through. In the next centuries, Tamil meters, melodies and rhythms enrich Sinhala poetry, music and dance. All three elements are present in the Vannam of the Kandyan dance. You heard that played on the piano and the drums, the famous, graceful and dignified Gajaga Vannam, or the dance of the elephant, or the walk of the elephant. In the first movement of this program, its vocal overture leading to a medley presented this history in a kind of capsule form. The elements which continue what may be called Sinhala music in a very broad definition were not presented chronologically, like in Milan Kundera's analogy of the dance of the seven veils, where the layers were peeled away backward in time to reveal the genesis. Here they were presented in a vertical manner, hence the term medley. The dancer danced with all seven veils, but each veil was brought briefly into focus through instrumentation and rhythmic or tonal shifts. The tracing of the genealogies of each strand, clearly audible in contemporary Sinhala music, would be done in the next few movements of this program. In 1956, there occurred a seminal event in Sinhala theatre. Professor Edrivira Sarachandra, after years of research, experimented with a form of folk drama that had been extremely popular in the first half of the 19th century in this country. This form of popular music, known as Nadagam, had come from Tamil Nadu, first to Jaffna and then to the northwestern coastline. These plays were mostly based on stories that had a strong Catholic base and were descendant, obviously, from the European morality plays. The music was a fusion between Catholic hymns and Carnatic rhythmic patterns, the first instance in these parts of such a mix. Sarachandra, when he produced his seminal exercise in Sinhala theatre Maname in 1956, was reworking the elements of the Nadagam for a modern audience and to be performed on the proscenium stage. We begin this movement with a song from Maname.
Sisu sewo
sung in the real theatrical operatic style and in the real Nadagam timbre. This we first heard, at least my generation and that which came before, but this melody was first heard in the country way back in 1892, when the Nadagan tradition was already dying and the hybrid Parsi theatre troupes arriving regularly in Colombo were becoming extremely popular. Sidon Bastian, a pioneer, adapted some of these plays to Sinhala, and the first such exercise was titled Romlina, where this song occurs.
Kapiriyek abol arang yas situviya asawa isateki. Kapiriyek abol arang yas situviya asawa isateki. Di mudala eya illu kalamav, di mudala eya illu kalamav, utadko penitallu kala. Dek asoyuri biyavi kapiri, ita penge nami neta den kumari. Nadanutiyurin ita kohet numba, mama yami soyana uwa meda. Nadanutiyurin ita kohet numba, mama yami soyana uwa meda. Masitave tadaduk tirasarama, masitave tadaduk tirasarama, megana bohodana harimi mama. Situwa pemini maligata tiyurini, sapayen pasamu yami mama itini.
That song was first sung in Sri Lanka, somewhere in Colombo, in 1892. Romlina is considered the first breakaway from the Nadagan tradition in Sinhala theatre, and the melody which Sarat Chandra borrowed from the play does not belong to the genre of folk song or folk theatre. Its genesis goes back to a century or before, to Gujarat, and to a very, very popular bhajan that's sung in a totally different manner in Gujarat even today. You will hear this melody played by Ravi Shankar on the final rolling credits of Richard Attenborough's Gandhi, and that was played as a tribute to Gandhi's Gujarat because he was born a Gujarati. This was a unique instance where a sophisticated and an intricate melody rooted in the North Indian classical tradition was adapted for a performance in the Nadagam manner. The latter depends on strong percussion to facilitate physical movement, whereas the bhajan is pure chamber music, meditative in tone and delivery. I quoted this instance through demonstration to illustrate the innovative manner in which Sinhala music had absorbed elements from various traditions and for purposes not originally meant. I come back to Maname to trace the different paths and reach another beginning. These two numbers which we are going to present now, both strong on rhythm, facilitating flamboyant choreographic movements and held together by percussion on the traditional drum maddala, is pure Nadagam. They are also extremely popular and has become part of a rich repertoire of Sinhala theatre music. The two songs will be sung together.
Pipitambarana nada bambarana piyare udena liyakinura Pipitambarana nada bambarana piyare udena liyakinura premaye mana ranjitave nanditave pushpaye mana sundarave lanputave premaye mana ranjitave nanditave pushpaye mana sundarave lanputave alaye Sedi melata, alay peli sedi melata, mandapahi chandatapa kanditavi, irurajituge mandapahi chandatapa kanditavi, irurajituge. රජතුම චිත්ත නොම වේද තුටු මෑවි මාදුටු කුමලලියා පැතේ මෙම ඇවිදින දැක වෙලෙ සිට මම ඇදමින් සදිසිලඳ සිඳ වූයේ අරුමද දෙට මට නුමසුරු තැගි බොගනෙක් පඳුරු ගට හැකි මේ අයුරු අදේ මැව අමයුරු මෑනම් රූලිය නොම වන්නේ මෑනම් රූලිය නොම වන්නේ සුර අංගනක විලසට වේදවන සිඳඟන මෑනම් රූලිය නොම
The drum or the maddala continues after the song in these Nadagang melodies because they were meant essentially for movement, and the player takes the exit to the beat of the drum. I want you to retain these melodies firmly in mind as I take you to the second decade of the 18th century, 1720 to be precise. The Dutch were occupying the maritime provinces, and they, being of the Dutch Reformed Church, were persecuting the Catholics, who had practically gone underground en masse. Then there appeared on the scene a legendary figure. He was a Konkani Brahmin from Goa who had become a Jesuit missionary and baptized his father, Giacomo Gonzalez. He sneaked into the island incognito to revive the Catholic faith, and from 1720 until his death 20 years later, somewhere in Negombo, he walked among the Catholic faithful, reviving their spirit. To the propagation of the Catholic faith was to utilize indigenous institutions and cultural practices to preach the gospel. He mastered Tamil in Jaffna and wrote a large number of hymns in that language. Walked into the Kandyan kingdom where the tolerant king, Narendra Singha, gave him asylum, and he lived with the Malvatta priests and learned Sinhala. The songs he composed in Tamil in Jaffna, he rewrote in Sinhala. The two songs you are about to hear were written by Reverend Father Giacomo Gonzalez nearly 250 years ago, including the words, the melody and the words. These are the Sinhala versions of what he wrote in Jaffna.
Nire apa saturugen jayaganna Santa Kuruse adayalame Vidde putspretu santu get namen Jesus Jesune Paramandalevele vedasitina Devi Pituruge dakune Devi Pituruge dakune Aradita
When we consider these as Catholic hymns, we should notice something special in them. They do not conform to the traditional forms of hymns, either Christian or Catholic, with roots in European music. The melodies of Father Giacomo Gonzalez, especially in their rhythmic structures, have strong South Indian Carnatic flavor. This was consistent with the great missionaries' policy of communicating in idioms, both linguistic and otherwise, which were familiar to the local people.
जन्म निर्दोष वसुंदर
आनामौकुसेन विविदुल दोष जन्म निर्दोष वसुंदर
नासरेत जुसे मिन सामगिनकार
नासरेत जुसे मिन सामगिनकार
वंदनय सिद्ध कर तुंग पति व्रत रख
वंदनय सिद्ध कर तुंग पति व्रत रख
आरंभिन पेर निर्मित मनुलोव आदित्य युरु निर्मलिये सुर
आरंभिन पेर निर्मित मनुलोभ आदित्य युरु
ලන්නට
වදම් කළ පවුදුරලන්නට
නන්ත බල ජේසු උපදින්ට කරුණා පිරුණ
නන්ද බල ජේසු උපදින්ට කරුණා පිරුණ
From this stream, we now move to the spread of North Indian popular music in this country. It begins with the arrival of commercial theatre troupes from Bombay, managed mostly by the Parsis from the mid-century onwards. The music of these plays was a hybrid, a mixture of ghazals, qawwalis, Punjabi folk, Hindustani light classical, and perhaps some Western melodies from the British brass bands and Scottish bagpipes, popular at this time all over India. For this very reason, these songs became a rage among the urban working class in the growing metropolis of Colombo. By the end of the 19th century, Nadagan was antique, lowbrow, vulgar, and the name itself came to mean nonsense in common Sinhala parlance. Sidon Bastian had started following the new trail with his Romlina, followed by a few more. However, it was left to another genius to take it beyond. He was Makalande John de Silva, and his name is almost synonymous with the first phase of modern Sinhala theatre. The music of his plays, mostly composed by a Gujarati musician, Ustad Viswanath Lauji, is an impressive body of work representing the birth of modern Sinhala popular song. We pay tribute to a pioneer with this number, which beginning in its original form rendered by Jananath Varakagoda, would be developed into a jazz improvisation by Harsha Makalande and Ravi Bandhu Vidyapati.
आकाशे सदा से इसने वदती गे श्रिया मन मत विमागे देखला माधवे विहरदे श्रिया मन मत विमागे देखला माधवे विहरदे श्रिया मन मत विमागे देखला माधवे विहरदे
Now I wish to take you to another strand, as I would call in Sinhala music. It has been recorded that Rabindranath Tagore first came to the island in 1927. But on this first visit, he has not left behind any footprints. It was on his second visit in 1934 that he created a huge impact on a national bourgeoisie in the grip of a cultural reawakening. His influence on Sinhala poetry and music of the time had been seminal. He inspired young Sri Lankans to come over to Shanti Niketan, and among the first of those was a young art teacher named George Samarakon. He returned as a musician, and like most of those who went to Shanti Niketan, changed his name to Ananda Samarakon. We go now to the banks of the river Hooghly in eastern Bengal, where the Bhattiyali songs of the boatmen are heard. Tagore was inspired by them and used the long looping bars rising and falling to the slow rhythm of the boatmen as they pulled their barges in many of his compositions. Listen to the song Bondure, and it will morph seamlessly into our song of the Kalani boatmen, to develop into an ode to the Mahaveli, a hauntingly beautiful composition by Sarath Fernando. This melody by Sarath Fernando, with which this movement will peak, was first sung by Piyasiri Vijayaratna, one of the greatest voices we had in Sinhala music and song, but which was sadly stilled 4 years back. This song is mostly my tribute to him.
බාලනගෝ නුඹ මට වාසනාවන් ඊර බාරයි ඊර වට යන ගිරවුන්ට සඳ බාරයි සඳ වට යන සාවුන්ට මල බාරයි මල වට යන පවරුන්ට නුඹ බාරයි මතු මතුවත් නගෝ මට මහියංගනේ රන් කොතවා සනාවන් මහවැලි ගඟේ තියවර වාසනාවන් තුන් යමදුටුව සිහිනය වාසනාවන් බාලනගෝ නුඹ මට වාසනාවන් ඉරගල නුවර ඉරගල පවතිනාතුරු සඳගල නුවර සඳගල පවතිනාතුරු අප හද බැඳුණු සෙනෙහස මල් පිපෙනතුරු මේ ගඟ ගලනු ඇත දුක සැබ දෙකම මහියංගනේ රන් කොතවා සනාවන් මහවැලි ගඟේ තියවර වාසනාවන් තුන් යමදුටුව සිහිනය වාසනාවන් බාලනගෝ නුඹ මට වාසනාවන් බාලනගෝ නුඹ මට වාසනාවන් බාලනගෝ නුඹ මට වාසනාවන්
We take you back in time to 1934, when a man born to wealth and power and to the highest echelons of Sri Lankan society, educated almost entirely in England and graduating from Cambridge, studying and performing music in the best of venues in London, returns home and suddenly, through some secret compulsion, devotes his life to the excavation, the preservation and the development of Sinhala folk music. Baptized Herbert Charles Jacob Piris, he becomes Deva Surya Sena. And with his gifted and beautiful wife, dubbed Nelum Devi, roamed the world, singing and introducing the folk heritage of Sinhala music. At the request of his cousin, Reverend Lakdasa Dimel, a parish priest of an Anglican church in Baddegama in the deep south, researched and composed a Ceylon liturgy based on Sinhala folk music, a revolutionary idea for even today. Very little is known about this pioneering feat by a man who loved his country and his faith and served both with equal passion. Let me quote from his autobiography as he reminisces on this achievement. I quote, "A few months after I finished composing it, and after the choir had learnt the setting of the liturgy, it was sung on a Sunday morning. I was present. The choir sang it beautifully. The accompaniment was supplied by oriental instruments only, tampuras, dilrubas, drums and talampata. At the end of the service, people came out of the church beaming with joy. History in Sinhala worship was made that day. The congregation seemed to be conscious that this was their music. Haven't we come full circle then? From the great missionary, Father Giacomo Gonzalez, let us listen now to Deva Suresena's music, composed, as he says, when for 3 days a tropical thunderstorm raged outside the vicarage where he was staying to complete his task. I quote again from his book of Sri Lanka, I sing his autobiography. The majestic theme of the Gajaka Vannama seemed to fit the Sanctus. A suggestion of the boatman's song seemed just right for the Agnus Dei. Bit by bit, for each part of the service up to the Gloria were given to me. I was only a channel. Some unseen power seemed to be directing. That brings this program to a close. But how could we talk about Sinhala music without reference to the greatest living Sinhala musician of our time, Pandit Amaradeva? In his rich body of work, orchestral, vocal and instrumental, spanning a period of nearly 6 decades, there is the perfect synthesis of all the various strands of music, melody and rhythm we have discussed. Whilst most of his generation who began with him are either no more or gone down under commercial pressures, Amaradeva has remained firmly anchored in the lofty values he had set for himself. But with him begins another story, and immediately with him there are others. There is the much talked about controversial musician Premasiri Kemadasa. There is also Hussain Mohammed, who way back in 1951 or 52. And there is then my good friend Sarath Fernando. Unfortunately, he has left the country, but when he was here, on a very low profile, he has done some impressive work. He was the one who orchestrated Amaradeva's music to Lester James Peter's Delawak Katara, still one of the most successful scores for a Sinhala film, sadly forgotten. Then we have to talk about people like Harsha, Makalande and Ravi Bandhu, who are doing some fantastic fusion work. I wouldn't leave out Bhatia and Santush too. They all belong to the fabric of Sinhala music. And to talk about that, it's going to be another story, and we'll pick up the thread at some future date.